Assessing Learners' Reflection by Lacey Linkus. Educational assessments can take many forms, including evaluating students in a traditional classroom to observing and training a new employee at work. At Starbucks, training employees is a standard duty of shift management and upper management, and while I have worked for Starbucks for years, the training program has changed accordingly. Considering the changes made to the training program, observing and understanding the assessment process was a new experience. On Monday, November 13th, 2017, I oversaw a training session between a barista trainer, Lexi Layton, and a new employee. The training session began around noon, however my observation time ran from 3 to 3:30. Upon my arrival, I noticed the training materials were completely redesigned, including more instances of assessment within the process. Although previously not included, the training is now required to pause during training and ask the trainee questions about the information being presented, as well as conduct skill mastery tests after each section. This allows a clear understanding of the trainee's skill level, as well as the overall comprehension of the material, giving the instructor the opportunity to go over material that was not understood or move forward based on the knowledge comprehension of the new employee. During my initial training, the necessary skills and duties of the job were described and showcased, but there was not a dedicated form of assessment or understanding to track the trainee's overall progress. This new training program utilizes expanded assessment tools to ensure a better comprehension of the training materials. Type of assessment. According to OB and SAP, assessments serves various purposes, including screening, diagnosis, progress monitoring, measure, and outcomes measured. Within the reformed Starbucks training program, many of these assessments were utilized during training, including diagnosis, progress monitoring, and outcomes measured. Diagnosis. In the beginning of each section, Lexi asked the trainee if she had any previous experience with the topic of the section, for example, brewing coffee. This allowed Lexi to understand the current knowledge level of the trainee to better address their educational needs, which is also known as differentiated instruction. Differentiated instruction is an aspect of diagnostic assessment, which is an assessment based on the specific needs of each student. The focus of a diagnostic assessment is to understand the current skill level of the student so the instructor has a better understanding of the best practices that will yield the best results. This technique plays a critical role in teaching, regardless of the topic, and observing its use in a non-traditional educational setting provided insight into how I could use this in an everyday classroom. While it can be argued that this step is not crucial to the educational process, as other assessment types, without acknowledging a student's current level of education, teachers put themselves in a position to either over or underteach their students. This is problematic as it can lead to students lacking enthusiasm for their education because they are being taught information they already know, or they suffer from miscommunication and misunderstanding information, leading to poor grades and knowledge retention. Incorporating diagnostic assessment into the reformed training program was a valuable tool implemented by Starbucks to increase the efficiency of training new employees. Progress monitoring. Throughout each training session, Lexi would pause and quiz the trainee on previous information as well as discuss the current information, allowing the trainee to ask questions and engage in further discussion. Similar to formative assessment, Lexi utilized a continuous assessment of the trainee to understand her progress and connect the trainee to her potential. Formative assessment is based on an ongoing assessment of a student's progress, allowing for a better understanding of the student's needs and acts as a way to bridge the gap between current skill and potential skill. By continuously assessing the trainee's progress, Lexi was able to understand when to adjust the instruction, allowing for better comprehension and improvement. Applying this method in a traditional classroom would reap similar benefits. Without continued assessment throughout the educational process, students are at risk of being left behind when they don't understand the material due to oversight of the instructor and lack of time dedicated to getting students the chance to ask questions about the material. Outcomes measured. After each training session, the trainee was assessed on her retention and skill level. Lexi would require the trainee to either perform the task on her own or answer questions based on the required skill set, and then use the assessment to sum up the trainee's understanding after each section of the training materials. According to Hall, summative assessment is during a designated time of the education process and is used to understand the overall achievements made by the learner. This critical step in the educational process is supported by the previous assessments and types implemented by this training program. Tracking the measured outcomes after each section not only supports and expands upon the previous assessment types applied, but also allows for a final tangible overall assessment of the understanding of the trainee while providing insight into areas that still need improvement. While the step is similar to opening the floor to questions by the student and quizzing the student to understand comprehension, this step allows an instructor to determine an overall retention of the material rather than segmenting the assessment at the end of each section. It's important to follow up with a student's understanding at the end of a given section before moving on to new material. Assessment effectiveness. Overall, I believe the training materials used by Starbucks are effective use of assessment tools to better the trainees' retention. While the training materials have changed over the years, the assessment tools utilized by the program are similar, if not the same, to when I was initially trained. My success within the company and my role as a barista is a concrete example of the effectiveness of the school's training materials. The training program and assessment served as the foundation of my knowledge in fulfilling my job to the best of my abilities. It's apparent that the training program, as well as its assessments provided by Starbucks, are effective in their instruction. While my observation did not take place in the traditional classroom, these assessment techniques are critical in the educational process of anyone gaining knowledge from another person. Proposed assessment. While this assessment utilized by Starbucks training program are highly effective, the implementation of additional assessment strategies in the training program would be more effective. Formative assessment strategies play a vital role in a person's education. However, Starbucks training program does not utilize the strategy to its full potential. If more formative assessment strategies were used throughout the training process, trainees would have a better overall understanding of the requirements and more time to heighten their skill set. Formative assessment allows for the continued use of assessments to understand the progress of the learner, meaning this assessment type allows for more practice to occur. Despite the effectiveness of the current training program, many trainees quit after their training is complete because they feel unprepared when they are finally given the opportunity to showcase their skills on the floor in front of customers. While the training program thoroughly addresses any questions a trainee may have, as well as gauges their understanding throughout the process, there is very limited time for the trainee to implement and practice the skills they are taught prior to serving customers in a real-life manner. Practice is an essential aspect of any training, and particularly for the Starbucks training program, added time to allow for more practice through formative assessments would be highly beneficial, considering the amount of information being taught and the mastery of required skills needed prior to having customer interaction. Conclusion. Assessment plays a key role in the educational process. As an instructor, it is important to understand the different types of assessments and how each can be used in an educational setting. Different assessment practices are effective in different settings, and as an educator, it is your responsibility to understand the effectiveness and use of each type of assessment. Observing a standard training program provided by the company I currently work for allowed me to understand not only the use of assessment in a practical setting, but how I can improve these strategies in my own teaching. The impact of the types of assessments used in any educational setting to determine overall comprehension and understanding vary based on their execution, and understanding the benefits and setbacks of each one allows for instructors to perform the right mix of assessments and strategies to maximize the knowledge retention, progress, and understanding of their students. Thank you.